To President. Good morning, members and officials. The Council now resumes the motion debate on holistically reviewing and enhancing legislation relating to child protection. Mr. Rokshan, President, according to the Child Protection Registry Statistical Report of the SWD, in 2020, there were 904 child abuse cases. In 2025, there are 1,500. An increase of 66% over 5 years' time. It shows that there is much room for improving our child protection measures. That's why I speak in support of the motion moved by Mr. Nick Chen, and also I move my following suggestions. First of all, we need to step up the support for frontline professionals to help them more accurately identify child abuse cases. Since the mandatory reporting of child abuse ordinance has taken effect, in the first 2 months, 66 reports have been received. It shows that the law is effective. However, frontline professionals are under huge pressure. Yes, they can identify physical signs of abuse. However, when children are depressed, it is difficult to identify whether it is due to psychological abuse or sexual abuse. And also, we have to make a clear distinction between disciplining a child and abuse. So the government has to gather cases in the initial period of the implementation of the law, and also through scenario analysis as well as workshops, we have to strengthen frontline workers' confidence in reporting abuse. And also, the relevant curriculum should be incorporated into the relevant curriculums of the professionals so as to build awareness. And also, through public education, the government should encourage more parents to learn about positive parenting skills to build a more harmonious parent-child relations. Second, we need to establish a more effective early support system to change passive reporting to active caring. On the premise of strictly compliance with the Personal Data Privacy Ordinance, the government should foster data sharing between the professional sectors. For high-risk cases, for example, students who have a high absence rate, constant changing of schools, and also previous record of abuse, professionals should be assigned to provide early assistance to these high-risk cases to prevent the situation from worsening. It will help protect the children while preserving family harmony. Three, we need to be mindful of the harmful impacts of AI and digital media on students. Now, children are very familiar with the internet world as well as games. The government should help parents to set up limits on screen time and also develop tools to prevent children from being in touch with harmful contents. Schools should educate children on digital literacy. Students should be taught to reject inappropriate contact with strangers and also seek help when these situation arises. Now, the AI advocacy group established by the chief executive should also consider coordinating departments to establish an AI guide for children suitable for the situation of Hong Kong to help children grow healthily. Now, we need to extend the reach to the community as well. Families and the neighborhood are the most important guardians of children. Now, the government is now establishing community centers for parents and children. More spaces should be made available to parents and children to foster a more healthy environment for children's growth. I also submit and support the motion. Mr. Adrian Ho. Thank you, President. I speak in support of Mr. Nick Chen's motion on holistically reviewing and enhancing legislation relating to child protection. In recent years, the government has improved the mechanism to protect children. Now, the mandatory reporting of child abuse ordinance, which has taken effect recently, is useful in early identification and intervention of potential child abuse cases. At the same time, the public has heightened its awareness on child abuse. There has been a recent case where a child proactively called the police to report on her mother's suspected child abuse behavior. It shows that children are more aware of their own rights, and also they have more trust in the system. However, while recognizing the improvements in the mechanism, we must not be complacent. Parents' discipline on children all stems from their love for their children, but sometimes they may be too harsh. I believe every one of us here have been on the receiving end of corporal punishment. However, there is a fine line between discipline and abuse. Categorizing discipline as abuse is not beneficial to family harmony. It is not good for the child's development as well. So I think the government has to step up on public education to educate the public on the difference between discipline and abuse. Now, about the sexual offenders registry system. These conviction records will not lapse. But I think this is not enough. All sex offenders, even for mild offenders or even when the conviction has lapsed, they should not be allowed to take on any jobs which requires contact with children. Now, for sex offenses, usually the penalty would be harsh, and usually the convicted are not subject to the rehabilitation scheme. However, we need to step up the protection for children from an institutional point of view. Now, concerning protecting children from sexual assaults, this is important, but we also need to protect children's psychologies and mental health. Now, with the popular use of social media, it is easy for children to have access to harmful contents, including pornographies and violent images. That was not the case when I was young. So these harmful contents would affect their development seriously. We need to strengthen education on parents. We need to face the challenges brought about by technological advancement head-on. Now, many foreign governments, for example, Australia, has legislated to ban those under 16 to use social media platforms. In the UK, to prevent minors from gaining access to pornographic contents, websites need to verify the age of the users strictly. So these measures may not be suitable for Hong Kong entirely, but it is worth exploring. Social media platforms and also the widespread use of mobile phones have affected the growth of children. It has even undermined the interpersonal context between human beings. So we need to study whether we should legislate to limit the screen time of children. Protection of children requires ongoing work. We need to ensure that children are adequately protected and avoid making the system too straight, which interferes with family life. Thank you. Mr. Chan Pok-chi. President, children are the vessel of society's hope. To build a healthy and safe environment for children to grow, that's the shared responsibility between the government, society, and everyone. In recent years, there have been a rising number of cases of children being abused, psychological abuse, deepfake, as well as online bullying. Despite our legislations, there are still a lot of gaps, and there is room for improving the overall mechanism. A holistic review of the system is imminent. We have established a number of legislations to provide basic protection for children. The Mandatory Reporting of Child Abuse Ordinance, which has taken effect in January this year, has created a strong bulwark to protect children. By the end of February, the government has received some 60 reports of serious child abuse involving some 70 children. It shows that there is a heightened awareness in society. But this is only the beginning. The threshold to report psychological abuse as well as the standard of reports still has to be improved. Now with online grooming as well as deepfake, these are new challenges. Improving the copyright ordinance and ensure the healthy growth of AI is important. I'm pleased to see that the intellectual property agencies as well as the CDB has started a public consultation. Now I look forward to the relevant practical guides published by the government. President, with the widespread use of mobile devices and social media platforms, the online risk faced by children has been expanding. According to statistics, for adolescents between the age of 12 and 14, they are the high-risk groups subject to online grooming and harmful impacts of the online world. AI deepfake images also bring new challenges. The family is crucial. Without support, and the lack of support as well as financial difficulties are high-risk factors. Many parents, because of lack of knowledge, they lack the skills to support the children. So positive parenting is important in protecting children at source. Now I expect the government to be proactive to enhance the relevant legislative frameworks. We must enhance the deterrence of child abuse offenses. Concerning deepfake child pornographic images, we have to review the law. We must also review the enforcement mechanism of the COIO, and we must keep children away from harmful contents. In terms of the campus as well as the online world, we need to study reasonable limitation of screen time and prevent children from accessing websites with harmful contents. There should be a cross-departmental supporting mechanism to address campus and online bullying. There must be rapid support for the victims. More resources should be allocated to provide caring and counseling services for families in need. We have to inculcate the culture of positive parenting in society. There is no endpoint to the work of protecting children. Robust legislation, good mechanism, and adequate support are important for children's growth. I urge the governments to take the initiative to review the laws and speed up legislative work and gather the efforts of all parties in society to create a more tight-knit, protective net for children, so that every child can grow in an environment where they are respected and loved. I so submit.
Mr. Hong came in. President, children are the future of society. Protecting children is protecting pillars of society of the future. Protecting them from any form of harm is a common goal of society. in face of a complex environment, we must make comprehensive, relevant legislation to build a even more robust safety net. According to SWD data, we have an increasing number of abuse cases with 1,439 in 2022, 1,504 in 2024. In 3 years, we have seen an increase of 4.5%. Children aged between 12 and 14 are the most vulnerable. 60% of the perpetrators are their parents. The risk factor is a lack of support system and economic difficulty. Apart from physical harm, we now have greater awareness of harm in mental health. This kind of harm is more hidden. It can also cause greater trauma in children, affecting growth of children in different areas. We have a prevalence of pornographic information on the internet, and there is abuse of AI causing children to be more vulnerable to sexual grooming and cyberbullying. I'm very concerned. The administration has been working hard to promote children protection. The mandatory reporting of child abuse ordinance that came into effect on 20th of January is a key milestone. We have received 66 reports in the first 2 months involving 70 children. It seems that the ordinance is working smoothly. We have enhanced awareness for reporting for professionals. It has built a clear safety net for children. However, we have to increase deterrence. We have the relevant legislation providing remedy. We should try to intervene early on and prevent abuse from happening in the first place. Reporting is not the end of things. It is more important to repair the family relationship and provide counseling to children who have suffered abuse. Right now, there is unclear delineation of responsibilities of professionals, so that we have great pressure on the front line. They are scared that they would misreport or omit in reporting. We need to strike a balance between children protection and professional judgment. The DAB appreciates the administration's efforts in preventing child abuse, but we believe there is a need to further deepen efforts in promoting children protection. We have some suggestions. 1, we need to pay greater attention to sexual grooming and cyberbullying. There is an increase in number of cases. According to a recent survey, 20% of the survey respondents have been bullied online, and some of them even have thoughts of self-harm. We should have anti-bullying legislation and enhance youngsters' awareness of use of internet. As for sexual grooming, we have children being asked to take intimate images or even suffer sexual abuse through sexual grooming performed through online media. We should amend legislation relating to sexual offenses to enhance protection for children. We have students making use of photos of their other female peers who are students to generate pornographic images. This is an abuse of technology. We need to pay attention to this issue. We need to enhance publicity and education as well as enforce against such acts. Protection of children is a common mission of society. We should work together to flesh out relevant laws, deploy more resources in publicity and education to protect our children who are the future of Hong Kong. Thank you. I speak in support of the motion. Mr. Lee Kuan-yew, thank you, President. I speak in support of the original motion. We have children facing risk not only offline but online these days. As we see a prevalence of mobile devices, social media, and generative AI technology, we have some people make use of search accounts to get in touch with children. They make use of AI to make fake images, to ask for people to provide intimate images, and then blackmail the children. Now, the risks seem not to be isolated. According to a Hong Kong youth survey, in the past year, at least 4 out of 10 secondary students have been exposed to inappropriate sexual content. 1/5 of the students have been bullied online. 1 in 20 students have received a request to provide nude photos. According to the survey, 27% of the youngsters said their parents did not discuss with them how to deal with what they encountered online that made them feel concerned. It seems that not only are we lagging behind in awareness, we are lagging behind in family support and institutional framework. We need to increase deterrence in terms of sentences to make sure we take a more preventive approach in children protection. We have in different parts of the world different ways to protect children. It's not just about punishing the perpetrators, it's to provide more institutional controls for social media platforms. In the UK, they have social media platforms regulated by law to proactively identify and manage relevant risks. And there are risk assessments done for platforms used by children. We should refer to the relevant practice. In Hong Kong, the administration can explore the establishment of a regulatory system for platforms to be held accountable. They need to deal with reports made by users to remove inappropriate content, and they should also work with law enforcement agencies in investigation. They should also make regular reports to enhance transparency and accountability. The administration can also provide pragmatic guidance that have statutory responsibilities, asking platforms to take measures to protect children, to impose, for example, age protection, and have accounts of children set as private accounts. They can also adjust their algorithms to prevent children from being exposed to harmful content. As long as we implement these requirements in platform design, we will then be able to take a more preventive approach rather than trying to have remedial action after the fact. We also need to provide better support in parent education and community support. We have, for abuse cases, often the ones who notice the problem first with children would be parents of the children, teachers, as well as classmates. So instead of intervening after the fact, we should identify early on signs that there may be trouble. I suggest the administration work with different organizations, schools, NGOs to provide seminars to enhance awareness of parents so as to better protect children. With children protection, we should not only amend legislation, we need to enhance the safety net. We need to have a more comprehensive platform regulatory regime and enhance parent education to better protect children. I so submit. Mr. Chen Yong. Thank you, President. I also thank the Secretary for Labor and Welfare for attending the meeting today. I very much thank and support Mr. Nick Chen in proposing the relevant motion. We all know that presidency and the central authorities, as well as the chief executive, attach great importance to the protection of children. And President Xi said children are the future of the revitalization of the country. And in fact, the Society of Hong Kong pays great attention to protecting children. And we have in livelihood policy an important component being welfare. While we attach great importance to the relevant issue, we have seen some serious incidents happening in different places. And in fact, in Hong Kong, the situation is dire too. According to the Social Welfare Department's figures last year, we have over 1,500 abuse cases. We have actually seen an increase in the number of cases. We have close to half of the cases citing a lack of support, and 30% of the cases citing economic difficulty as the reason of abuse. And we have girls who are especially vulnerable. Youngest victim announced by the police force figures is 10 years old, and apparently they have suffered some emotional harm. With the mandatory reporting of child abuse ordinance coming into effect, we want to make sure we go with the laws to better protect children. In the cyberspace, if we can catch the perpetrators, all of them, we will be able to better protect children. So I urge law enforcement agencies to make good use of technology and care teams network for enforcement so as to better protect children. Specifically, with the care teams network, many electrical members actually are involved in the work of care teams. For the elderly and children, especially for the elderly, I'm sure Mr. Crescent should know the Social Welfare Department and the LWB have supported regular visits made by care teams. And during these visits, there are opportunities to identify issues with family, and if we can enhance support for the families, should there be instances of health of children being compromised, we should make sure to tackle these issues during visits as a part of the safety net. We should enhance law enforcement to increase deterrence. If we can catch the criminals faster, there will be greater deterrence. We have gone through 2019 black-clad violence as well as other incidents. We have seen with Article 23 coming into effect, Hong Kong has become much safer. I think the same approach can be extended to the protection of children. We need to enhance cross-departmental and cross-sectoral collaboration for professionals who provide care to children, if they can receive regular training and support so that the professionals can provide timely and comprehensive services and counseling to victims, the children, so that they can recover earlier. We need to make sure to respect the elderly and care for the children, and if we can do that, we will have better protection for our future.
Ms. Judy Chen. Thank you, President. I thank Mr. Nick Chen for moving today's motion on holistically reviewing and enhancing legislation relating to child protection. I'm a mother. Every time when I read about these tragedies in the news, I am disheartened. Every child represents an important asset of society, be it physical abuse, cyberbullying, bullying on campuses. It always has far-reaching impact on the child as well as the whole family. Lives could be lost as a result. We should adopt a zero-tolerance attitude towards these crimes. Now, according to figures between year 2020 and 2025, For cases convicted under Section 27 of Offences Against the Person Ordinance, the case number has continued to increase. Of course, as a LegCo member, I made an effort in examining the mandatory reporting of child abuse bill tabled by the Labour and Welfare Bureau. And after the ordinance has come into effect, we have identified more cases of physical abuse. Now that legislation has been enacted, we need to do further, and that is to change the social atmosphere so as to protect our children, because they are our future. This should be our priority. Now, the original motion refers to 7 pieces of legislation, including the Employment of Children Regulations, Marriage Ordinance, Crimes Ordinance, Offences Against the Person Ordinance, the Protection of Children and Juveniles Ordinance, Prevention of Child Pornography Ordinance, as well as Mandatory Reporting of Child Abuse Ordinance. There are 7 pieces altogether. Well, I think we should make reference to the institution in the mainland. Every time when a crime is perpetrated, you need to look up different pieces of legislation. We are quite helpless. So instead, we should follow the practice in the mainland. There is a law to protect minors. It's very clear. And then under the law, there are 6 protection networks, including families, schools, community network, the government, judicial system. It's a holistic mechanism to protect minors. Well, I think that we should make reference to this mechanism because at the moment there are gray areas in our laws. For example, for teenagers under the age of 16, they are not allowed to stay home alone. But for schools, they allow primary 4 children to go home by themselves. So on child protection laws, we need to come up with a clearer framework. My second point is this. Some amendments have referred to the use of social media and bullying in school. I think it is important that different government departments collaborate together. Now, I find it quite strange today because I thought that there would be somebody from the Education Bureau in attendance because after all, this should relate to the Education Bureau as well. Now, for children, we cannot stop them from using the internet because for home assignments, they are required to do some of them online. And we cannot monitor their activities just by sitting next to them all day long. So it's for us to discuss how we make use of technology. I support the original motion. I hope that the government can be proactive in exploring ways to address the child protection network. Next, Mr. Lau Kai-Kang. Well, I thank Mr. Nick Chan for the original motion and 6 members for their amendments. It's our common responsibility to protect children. According to statistics, child abuse cases in Hong Kong rose from 940 cases in 2020 to 1,504 in 2024. That's a 60% increase in 5 years. It's a worrying trend. On the 20th of January this year, the Mandatory Reporting of Child Abuse Ordinance came into effect. It has been effective as at the end of February, 66 reports were received in relation to suspected abuse of children. Days ago, healthcare staff reported a case involving domestic helper abusing 2 babies. This ordinance shows that by allowing early intervention into serious cases, we can better protect children and improve the safety net. We need to expedite our pace when it comes to sex crimes involving children. According to the police's report on law and order situation in 2025, last year 797 cases of sex crimes on children were recorded, up by 20%. We must not turn a blind eye to the situation. This year, we've heard cases of adults pretending to be the peers of children, and they lured children on social media to share their the images of their intimate parts. Children are exposed to great danger. Now, the government plans to submit an amendment bill to amend the crimes ordinance along with other pieces of legislation to implement the various recommendations made by the LRC, including one involving sex crimes on children. This is a response to the long-term aspiration of our society. I hope that the government can expedite the progress as quickly as possible so as to improve the law and offer better protection to our children. The second point is about expansion of the sexual offender conviction register. Well, this register is now in place. The coverage has been expanded to prospective self-employed persons as well as employees on a voluntary basis. For those who have exercised violence on children and who have abused children, they should not be allowed to take up any jobs relating to children either. The government should further expand the scope of the register, covering jobs such as assistance at child activity centers or domestic helpers, so as to identify high-risk individuals and enhance protection for children. According to Section 27 of the Offences Against a Person Ordinance, a child abuser will be subject to a maximum penalty of 10 years of imprisonment. Even if the victim is become so seriously hurt that it becomes a vegetable, the maximum penalty remains the same. In 2021, the LRC put forward a recommendation report proposing to increase the maximum penalty for such serious crimes causing the serious harm to children or even death to children to 15 to 20 years. The government should explore this option so as to increase deterrence and better protect children. Finally, I hope that the government would continue to review the implementation of mandatory reporting of child abuse ordinance. There should be stronger communication and collaboration with the education, welfare, and healthcare sectors, so that through collaboration, training, and the provision of guidelines, frontline professionals will be better able to identify the suspicious cases. I support the original motion. Mr. Alan Chan. Thank you, President. According to statistics and data, there are still loopholes when it comes to child protection laws in Hong Kong. In the past few years, the number of cases of neglect and abuse on children continued to increase. Every year, we registered over 1,000 new cases. We're concerned about the effectiveness of the existing child protection laws. I remember very well that one of the cases involved a severely mentally incapacitated child aged 8 who could not express himself clearly, and he suffered from bullying. He was physically abused in August 2023 in school, so that there was a large bruise mark on his thigh spanning 12 centimeters. Numerous complaints were made to the school, and the Education Bureau also asked the school to make improvement. The tragedy just kept on happening. So when it comes to Mr. Nick Chan's motion and the amendments, I agree, and I think that there are 3 major gaps in the child protection laws in Hong Kong. Lack of supervision is or lack of authority is one. The Education Bureau gives administrative advice to special schools, but there is no legal backing when it comes to enforcement. A permanent mechanism should be established to prevent the recurrence of tragedies. Second point, we're lagging behind as far as the tag laws are concerned. Children become victims of AI-doctored intimate pictures. They are exposed to threats on the internet. The third point is that whenever during extreme weather, some parents may take the children to risky places to so-called chase the wind and waves. The existing laws do not offer sufficient deterrence. In order to address these problems, the government should draw reference from other jurisdictions such as the UK, Australia, and Sweden. Now, we should enact legislation on 4 aspects. First, for special schools, we can make reference to the Children's Act in 2020 of UK in 2024 so as to give monetary authorities greater legal powers for serious incidents in special schools. The government should be given statutory powers to remove the management and those responsible in the schools, instead of just issuing administrative notices. Second, about AI and deepfake technologies, dedicated legislation should be set up. We should make reference to the Australian law in 2021 regarding cybersecurity. Cybersecurity commissioner should be appointed, and that upon report of a complaint, social media platforms should remove images within 24 hours involving serious cyberbullying and distribution of AI-generated intimate images without consent. And those not complying with the requirement will be subject to heavy fines. This can ensure active intervention. The third point is to define the responsibility when it comes to extreme weathers. Now we can break away from the traditional concept of parents having all the say over their children, because children are not accessories of their parents. Whenever risks arise, the government should be able to step in to make sure that children's safety is put first. We need to provide clear definition in the laws so as to give legal backing to any preventive action. The LRC has proposed a new offense, a failure to protect, and we should follow up on this recommendation. The fourth point is an emergency placement mechanism for victims. Your time is up.
Ms. Michelle Tang. Thank you, Deputy President. Protection of children is the obligation of a healthy society. In recent years, the number of cases of abuse and neglect of children has been on the rise. It is greatly saddening. With the widespread use of the internet, deepfake technology has been misused. There is an obvious gap we need to plug. I urge the government to study enhancements to legislations to protect children so as to provide a better safety net for the next generation. Many great suggestions have been made by members, including addressing the new challenges of deepfake images as well as online pornography. We should enhance the COIAO to strengthen the protection of children against pornographic images. And also, we should legislate to prohibit taking children to risky places during extreme weather. Now, urgently, we need to align the definition of children in various laws. We have several ordinances which protect children, but these were implemented at different stage. That's why there are different definitions. For example, the prevention of the employment of children regulations, the age is set as 15. However, for the mandatory reporting of child abuse ordinance, children refers to those under the age of 18. On some occasions, primary 3 or 4 students are allowed to go to school themselves. However, if parents leave children of the same age at home unattended, they would be committing an offense. More egregiously, children at the age of 16 can get married, but they are not allowed to stay at home on their own. These misalignments will weaken the credibility of the law. As a parent, I understand that the most important thing is an enforceable standard rather than having to guess the rule ourselves. Now, any change to the law will have far-reaching impacts. The Hong Kong SAR government should make reference to the experience of other jurisdictions in order to establish a more aligned definition for a child's age. Whether it is 14, 16, or 18 years old, it requires in-depth discussion in the public to reach a consensus. The government may also conduct a study to establish exceptions for some gray areas to remove the uncertainty in the law so that the public will not be committing an offense unwittingly. Now, to make the laws effective, the government must make the law clear to understand. These laws must not cause too much inconvenience to the public. We must create a healthy environment for children rather than putting a straitjacket on responsible parents with draconian laws. The government should set clear standards and also publish clear guidelines through public education and publicity. We must establish a sound and reasonable and logical base for protecting our children so that the laws are a bulwark for protecting our children rather than a maze for parents to navigate. Ms. Rebecca Chen. Thank you, Deputy President. I speak in support of Ms. Nick Chan's motion on holistically reviewing and enhancing legislation relating to child protection. Children are the future of society. It is of paramount importance to safeguard them and make sure that they can grow healthily. However, there is a continuous rise of child abuse cases in Hong Kong. According to SWD, in 2020, there were 940 cases of abuse. In 2024, there were 1,504. The increase was 60%, and it is a 10-year high. The situation is worrying. Now, the legislation offers a certain level of protection. However, the nature of law is passive. One case is too many. Besides improving the legislation, we must also put efforts in preventing child abuse at source. Now, there is a saying in society that you have to get a license in order to become a parent. It may seem like a joke, but it reflects the anxiety behind parenting. Now, the government has been advocating childbirth. However, if the support in parenting cannot catch up, it will lead to more problems. In the past, when we talk about child abuse, physical abuse would come to mind. However, psychological and emotional abuse have a much more far-reaching impact on children. Now, there is a movie where the leading character is a 10-year-old elite child. His father is a lawyer, but he fails to live up to the expectation of the family. When he needs help, his call for help was ignored. It has weakened his self-confidence and pushed him over the ledge. Now, it's not a problem unique to elite families. Many middle-class families and grassroots families also face the same situation. Parents do not set out to harm their children. However, because of long working hours and stress at work, they would treat their children coldly, and they would be harming the children unwittingly. According to data, 60% of the abusers are parents. 46.6% of them of these cases are a result of lack of parenting skill. It shows that support and education on parents is very important. We should start with the community. With subdivided units being phased out, we should consider extending community living room to other areas. It should be a platform where professionals can provide support to parents over the territory. There should also be professional respite services for parents to relieve their stress. And also professionals should be deployed to provide regular counseling services to parents, providing basic parenting and emotional management skills. There should also be play therapy services for children to express their emotions, and also guide parents to interact with their children in a more positive way. Schools are also an important place to provide support to parents. Now, there should be homework without rote learning. Now, there should be more interactive elements in homework at home. For example, observation as well as other daily tasks to allow more time of interaction between parents and children, and for parents to spot potential issues in the children. The school should step up digital education. Students should be taught on safe use of internet, and there should also be a reasonable limit to screen time. Schools should help parents to choose suitable online resources for children to enjoy, and also there should be measures to encourage flexible working hours as well as child support at workplace. The protection of children is more than a burden on the family. No matter how many legislations we have to be preventive and tackle the problem at source. Thank you. Mr. Chen Shou-Guang. Thank you, Deputy President. I support the motion on holistically reviewing and enhancing legislation relating to child protection. We're not trying to have repeated legislation to protect children. It is rather a measure to plug the gap between the laws and the reality. We must be forward-looking. There's been a rise in the number of child abuse cases. Compared with 5 years ago, there's been a 60% increase. It clearly shows that the existing legislations are inadequate in preventing and suppressing child abuse, especially emotional and psychological abuse. There is a lack of independent offenses for these behaviors. These cases are only dealt with practical guides, and the abusers will not be subject to prosecution. Many children are suffering in silence. Despite the implementation of the mandatory reporting of child abuse ordinance on the 20th of January this year, the law is just a beginning rather than the end. If there is a lack of frontline resources and there is a shortage of manpower in the SWD, then we cannot enhance multidisciplinary support for the frontline officers, and all the provisions will only remain on paper. Another risk is lack of enforcement. Now, laws including the Prevention of Child Pornography Ordinance do not have targeted provisions on deepfake child pornography. The 15th Five-Year Plan stresses that to build a civilization, we need to first safeguard children's rights. we have to fulfill our obligations under the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child as well. We have to establish a more preventive child protection system. That's why I support the motion moved by Mr. Nick Chen. I also urge the governments to conduct a holistic review on all the laws in relation to child protection. Simultaneously, we have to establish support for the professionals to achieve the intent of the law, to make sure that our laws have warmth. We need to provide environments where children can grow in dignity. Thank you.
Ms. Elizabeth Quad. Thank you, Deputy President. I speak in support of the original motion and all of the amendments. Children are the future of society. Society has the responsibility to protect children both physically and mentally. In order to prevent children from suffering harm, we have already many pieces of legislation, including the mandatory report of child abuse ordinance that came into effect early this year. However, we have still observed an increase in number of abuse cases. According to government data, we have a number of cases increased from 963 in 2013 to 1,551 in 2025. Even one case is more than enough. We need to protect every child from any form of abuse. I'm most concerned about child sex abuse cases. We have seen an increasing number of such cases. We have 797 cases in 2025. We cannot tolerate this, especially because such cases cause deep trauma in children. We are lagging behind in sexual abuse legislation. We have a very narrow definition of sexual offenses. We do not have rape covering cases where males have raped males. And with the sexual offenses, we only attach importance to penetrative acts but not sustained sexual abuse. We have inadequate protection of children. Also, for sexual offenses, they have a very high threshold for conviction. Victims have to repeatedly talk about what happened to them. For adult victims, it is already difficult enough, not to mention children. Children also are not mature. They may not know they have to seek support in a timely manner. Often they suffer sexual abuse repeatedly and for many years. It is therefore difficult for them to recount their experiences, making evidence collection hard, therefore making it hard to convict the relevant criminals. We should refer to Australia's practice. If victims can prove that during a specified period they have suffered 2 sexual abuses, that would have already made the conviction threshold. This should address the issue we have here. With the prevalence of pornographic content on social media and mobile devices, especially with the abuse of AI technology, we have a significant negative impact on children. Children aged between 12 and 14 are especially vulnerable because they are at a stage where they're finding their identities. They are especially vulnerable to cyber exploitation. We have in different places legislating for this to protect children. In Australia, at the end of 2025, they banned those under age 16 to make use of social media. And in different European countries, we have also restrictions imposed on use of social media by those age 15 or 16 or below. We need to refer to these experiences to better regulate social media platforms. On AI-generated content, we have called for time and again for regulation. In the mainland, AI-generated content have to be watermarked, and we can also have different platforms identify suspected AI-generated content to prevent false and pornographic information from harming children. With the mandatory report of child abuse ordinance coming into effect, we should now look at legislating for the offense of failure to protect. We have the RRC report published in 2021 and recommending for legislation of such offense. We should implement the proposals as soon as possible. I hope the government can explore the different suggestions I made earlier to enhance protection for children and mentally incapacitated persons. Also, the administration to enhance publicity and education and increase the penalties to better protect children. We should adopt a zero-tolerance attitude towards harm against children, and we really need to do more to protect children. We should all work together. I so submit, Mr. Yu Patlan. Thank you, Deputy President. I speak in support of the original motion and the amendments. I urge the administration to enhance protection for children. When we grew up, society adopted an attitude of not intervening in other families' business, and we should not intervene even when there was abuse going on. But as we move forward, there is a fundamental change in mindset in society about abuse towards children. We already have different pieces of legislation to protect children, including the mandatory report of child abuse ordinance that came into effect this year. But as the original motion and amendments say, with the developments in technology, there is great room in improvement in laws. As Michelle Tang said, we have to address the issue of definitions for children. I am especially concerned about protecting the physical and mental health of children. In the cyberspace, there is much exposure to malicious information, indecent and otherwise. We have last year on the streaming platform a UK drama that reflects very realistically the problem of youngsters being addicted to social media, the peer pressure they face, and how cyberbullying can really damage their minds and affect their choices. In Australia last year, they have a social media ban for children aged under 16. In March this year, Indonesia introduced similar measures. The UK, France, Norway, and Spain are also thinking about implementing similar measures to prevent children from being exposed to social media too early on. Many members agree we should have similar measures. While such measures are controversial and can be difficult to implement, I agree with the spirit of the amendments. We should refer to the practices in different places to look into the feasibility of legislating for such, so that we can ensure children can still grow up healthily in the cyberspace. Legislating alone is not enough. Laws only punish people after the fact. We need families, schools, and society to create an environment favorable to protecting children. Before I joined the tourism industry, I was a teacher. I also counseled students. Many of the students who had behavioral problems come from a difficult family background. And I agree, therefore, with Ms. Chen Hoyan, there is a need to enhance family support and parent education. When children are neglected, when they are growing up, they do not receive support from their families. They don't receive support from schools either. They can grow up with problems. And we have, according to a Hong Kong U 2023 study, basically proving my observations in the past, 1,000 teenagers were surveyed, and those who are neglected by their families are more likely to have high-risk cyber behavior. So, apart from legislating to protect children, we need to enhance family support to really reinforce that safety net. I hope that we can all work together to provide more support to families so that every child can grow up in an environment filled with love and respect, and to create a safer and happier future for the future generation and lay solid foundations for the reduction of child abuse cases. Mr. Dominic Lee. Thank you, Deputy President. Protecting children is a responsibility of society. It is also an important indicator of civility. Unfortunately, we have seen increasing number of child abuse cases in Hong Kong. According to the Social Welfare Department's figures, we have 904 new cases of child abuse in 2020. In 2024, it has reached 1,504. In 5 years, the number has increased by 66%. With the prevalence of mobile devices and social media and an abuse of AI deepfake technology, our children are faced with unprecedented challenges. We have in January of this year the mandatory report of child abuse ordinance coming into effect. That is a milestone, but there is much to do still in building this comprehensive safety net for children protection. I thank Mr. Nick Chen for proposing the motion at such a right timing. The New People's Party supports the motion. Apart from what is said in the motion, we think the administration can have offenses specifically for sexual grooming. Right now, in the laws of Hong Kong, there are no specific offenses for sexual grooming. So basically, perpetrators can make use of the internet to build trust from the children and groom them. The Law Reform Commission actually proposed more than 10 years ago there should be offenses for sexual grooming. It has been 10 years still and still have not such offenses. In 2003, the UK has already included sexual grooming as one of their sexual offenses, and in 2023 they have asked the online platforms to prevent children from being exposed to harmful content. We do not necessarily have to legislate for that, but we need to discuss for that and forge a consensus among society. In Australia, they passed the relevant legislation in 2024 that bans those under 16 from having social media accounts, and there is a particular commissioner that is responsible for regulation and enforcement. Right now, there are no such regulations in Hong Kong, and parental consent is not required for children to make use of social media services. It's not that we have to do something immediately, but there should be a platform for consultations to see if we need such regulation in this city. And we can also refer to our country's practice. The State Council promulgated cybersecurity laws for juveniles in 2024. It is a comprehensive piece of law to provide cyberspace protection for children, and it also tries to protect children from being addicted to the internet or social media. We have to align with the laws of the country, and in this spirit, should we have relevant laws to protect children in Hong Kong as well. The work to protect children is pressing, and we are faced with great challenges. But if the administration incorporates the different suggestions of members to plug the relevant loopholes, considering imposing offenses for different child sexual offenses and having an age restriction for the use of social media, I believe we can have a safer environment for children to grow up in. Thank you, Deputy President.
Dr. Alvin Lee. Thank you, President. We need to protect the rights and interests of children. We need to make sure that they can grow up healthily. This is the consensus around the world. Hong Kong is an affluent society. In general, our children receive quality education. They're given good health care and social resources. However, In recent years, time and again, we heard about tragedies of children being harmed. It's really disheartening. In the digital era, children are more exposed to sexual and cyberbullying and sexual information online. This really causes a major threat to their healthy development. In light of the escalating challenges, I thank Mr. Nick Chan for today's motion. This is a wake-up call for us. We should protect our next generation. I have some suggestions. The first one is to provide training to frontline personnel. First of all, the mandatory reporting of child abuse ordinance came into effect in January. It has given more protection to children. The ordinance emphasizes not only punishment, but also raising the awareness of professionals so that we can identify suspicious cases early. So the first step is to train frontline staff so as to help them judge cases. We need to enhance frontline training so that they can have a full grasp of the legal provisions and that they will be able to identify psychological traumas and abuse as well to stop children from being harmed the second time. Social workers, teachers, healthcare staff, as well as law enforcement officers should jointly set up a regular mechanism to share experience so that all stakeholders can chip in to help children. Now, in Ms. Grace Chan's amendment, she refers to reviewing the reporting threshold for any harm that endangers a child's psychological health or development. Now, I support this proposal because psychological harm may cause much greater hurt to the child than physical abuse. The government should also consider regulating the witnessing of violence, because if they witness domestic violence at home, they may suffer mentally as well, with far-reaching implications on their personal development as well as social ability. So we need to raise the reporting threshold and that the abuser should be held accountable. The next step is about government's intervention to stop bullying in schools. Now, we should make it a criminal offense, but on top of that, the government should also consider adopting administrative measures. In fact, in South Korea, back in 2004, they enacted legislation on bullying in schools. There are 9 levels of disciplinary sanctions. Starting from the next semester, some local governments have mandated the checking of such records by universities in the enrollment process. And as such, cases of bullying in schools were reviewed. So I think we can make reference to the laws in South Korea so as to make the bullies bear consequences. Next, about Mr. Tang Fei and Mr. Bao Tang's amendments drawing on the reference of other jurisdictions, we can enact legislation to restrict children from accessing social media. I think we can explore this option. Social media platforms should bear social responsibility as well. Many such platforms already have content checks, but they don't come with under the same standards. In order to better protect children, a joint platform should be set up to remove any sexual content that may harm children on social media. A reporting mechanism should be set up with a response time frame set. Now, President, children is our future. Children are our future. Now, the child protection laws today deserves improvement. It's crucial to building a harmonious society. I support Mr. Chan's motion and other amendments. Dr. Janice Ho. President. There's been an increase in the number of cases involving child abuse and trauma caused to children. But we must not be misled. Now, 1,500 plus cases of physical abuse. I think we've all covered that. But apart from visible injuries and physical harm, there are those who suffered psychologically because of bullying. These are not reflected in the figure I just cited. We need to protect our children. 1,500 cases is just the tip of the iceberg. So we need to improve our laws in a targeted manner to protect the children in their development, so that no scar will be left when they grow up. Now, of course, the biggest problem lies with physical abuse. For subvented organizations, even say the CRH, children could be subject to abuse. This is totally unacceptable. We need to give sufficient teeth to our laws to protect children. So it's not just about legislative amendments. We need to do more. We need to show care for our children. Say in schools, we have bullies, we have triad members, as well as those taking drugs. And then we proposed taking urine samples, and we also proposed having 1.5 social workers per school. Now, have things improved? Data-wise, I don't see any improvement. So we need to improve our laws. We need to step up enforcement as well. Otherwise, it would be meaningless just to amend the laws. Cyberbullying. Now that's a major issue. It may not be as severe as national security threats, but children are our future. We should not just give ourselves excuses. We should review the laws to tackle cyberbullying. What about pornography on the internet? Scams, AI-generated content, deepfake technology. How do we draw the line? In fact, in other jurisdictions, there are restrictions for children to bring mobile phones to schools during class. In some places, children are not allowed to access social media. Are we doing enough? I think we need to make a bold move. I definitely support the Security Bureau or the Labor and Welfare Bureau if you're willing to make a start. Coming back to another point, it's not right to be too doting to your children either. Even though you do not exercise physical abuse, you don't leave any mark, you don't beat them up, you still need to teach your children. Love itself is not sufficient. So we need to improve parenting skills. Now, Adrian just referred to being given a good hiding when he was young. Well, I also suffered the same. There were different forms of punishment. I loved my father. I loved my mother. They both hit me. But now, I really appreciate that the school principals, teachers, and parents all adopted a very solemn attitude in parenting. So I think we should, under some exceptional circumstances, allow parents, teachers, or even school principal to exercise physical punishment. It's not right just to feed your child candy. You should also punish them if they're wrong. I so submit. Mr. Kenneth Lau. The mandatory reporting of child abuse ordinance came into effect in January this year. In the first 2 months, 66 cases of suspected cases of child abuse were recorded, involving 70 children. According to statistics, Such cases rose from 940 in 2020 to 1,504 in 2024, with the cases involving mostly physical abuse, sexual abuse, neglect. Over half of these cases were perpetrated by parents. According to the social welfare sector, the data only represented the tip of an iceberg. It shows that the existing child protection laws are not adequate. I urge the government to holistically review and amend legislation. We should enact a new offense of failure to protect. We should enhance support for parents. We should give them counseling to better protect our children. In 2018, a 5-year-old girl was murdered after being abused in Tunmun. We are concerned about the responsibility of onlookers. The LRC put forward a recommendation, and that is new offense failure to protect should be enacted under the Offences Against a Person Ordinance. And after mandatory reporting of child abuse ordinance has come into effect, professionals such as healthcare staff, social workers, teachers are more vigilant. On this basis, the government should explore further the offense of failure to protect for those family members living together, domestic helpers, for example. Should they be held accountable for failure to protect in order to protect children? Now, we cannot just rely on a single profession to do that. We need the collaboration of different government departments to identify risks as early as possible, followed by early intervention to prevent tragedies from happening. Apart from physical abuse, psychological and mental abuse are equally serious. Very often, they're neglected because of lack of apparent injuries. The government should enhance training for frontline personnel so as to help identify children with emotional problems or behavioral problems. Schools, healthcare staff, and social workers should collaborate under this mechanism. Now, some parents believe that physical punishment is the way to teach the children. However, this concept is way out of date. Even a slap on the wrist or long-term verbal violence could damage parent-child relationship. Children are vulnerable. The government should enhance support for families. The government should provide support and training for parents on parenting, emotional education, family counseling, etc., so as to instill correct values in parents. Mandatory reporting is just the start. We need to tackle other challenges coming on, including emotional support. If we don't enhance psychological counseling and parent education, etc., it won't do if we only raise penalties. There should be cross-departmental efforts, consolidating resources for social workers, healthcare staff, and teachers so as to build a support network to better protect children and improve parent-child relationship. Now, next point is about pornographic materials sloshing about on the internet and AI-generated content, deepfake technologies being abused. Children are at stake. Well, about following other jurisdictions in restricting the use of social media by children, I think we need to be careful about this because this is a major challenge. We need to work on other aspects. For example, how do parents effectively monitor the use of internet by their children? The government should study this issue. The law enforcement departments should collaborate with the international community so as to urge platform operators to remove improper contents immediately. Schools should also enhance education for parents and children to stop children from being harmed. We need to stem out these cases. We need to prevent tragedies. In order to do that, the government should collaborate with the sector and the whole community. I support the motion. Does any other member wish to speak? If not, Mr. Nick Chan, you may now speak on the amendments. President, I'm grateful to the 6 members for moving amendments to my motion. I also thank 34 members for expressing their valuable views. I think we share the same vision. We want to protect each and every child so that they grow up in a happy environment. About Mr. Mark Zhong's amendment in relation to raising maximum penalties, implementing LRC's recommendations on child protection, or drawing reference from laws of other countries to regulate photographs created by AI deepfake, I think these ideas are highly aligned with mine. I give my full support. Ms. Maggie Chen refers to regulating acts of persons disregarding the safety of children, child abduction, cyber safety on the internet, and also regulating obscene and indecent articles exposed to children. I agree with her suggestions as well. About Mr. Tang Fei and Mr. Bill Tang's suggestions to regulate or restrict children from using social media, I think that since there are legislation in places such as EU, UK, US, and Australia, we can make reference to these legislation and study the feasibility in Hong Kong. Starting from December last year, Australia has stopped those under the age of 16 from using social media. In fact, the first report was released yesterday, and that Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Snapchat, the 5 major social media platforms, are criticized for not taking adequate steps to implement the Australian law. And there is an option of taking this matter to court with a maximum penalty of 266 million Hong Kong dollars. Mr. Tang Fei refers to the difficulties of taking law enforcement action online. I fully agree. Reverend Peter KOON and Mr. Bill Tang refer to penalties, relevant penalties. We need to improve the situation. I agree as well. Reverend Peter KOON refers to bullying and that the victims may exhibit behavioral problems such as poorer academic results, low self-esteem, anxiety, social withdrawal, even suicidal tendencies. Now we should consult stakeholders and we should work together to come up with a policy to tackle that. I agree with this amendment. Ms. Grace Chen refers to this suggestion that we should draw reference from the procedural guide for multidisciplinary cooperation for reviewing the reporting threshold for any harm that endangers a child's psychological health or development prescribed under the mandatory reporting of child abuse ordinance and Revd guide. Now, all these can help clarify the legal position relating to psychological harm. So I agree with Ms. Grace Chan. Mr. Tang Fei and Mr. Bill Tang are the exceptions. Other members referred to regulation on the social media platform. They've also cited examples in other jurisdictions. However, there are different degrees of control in different places with different scopes. The government should make reference to the practices in other places as well as consulting local stakeholders. A study should be conducted to make sure that such a system, if put in place, is tailor-made for Hong Kong. I thank the 6 members for their amendments. I am grateful for all members who have spoken. We share the same goal, that is to protect children. We should stem out child abuse cases so that we create a safe and happy environment for children to grow up in. I so submit I support the 6 amendments.
Under Secretary for Security. President. President. I thank Mr. Nick Chen for proposing the motion. Mr. Chong Ho-fung, Reverend Peter KOON, Mr. Tang Fei, Ms. Maggie Chen, Ms. Grace Chen, and Mr. Tang Ka-piu for proposing amendments, and all the members who have spoken on the motion. I'm now going to respond to views relating to the areas of work of the Security Bureau. As mentioned by many members, protecting children from harm and abuse is crucial to their healthy development. The government will continue to strengthen child protection on all fronts, including law enforcement, publicity and education, and legal protection. on law enforcement. To enhance child protection, the police force have put in place an arrangement where we have dedicated officers to handle child abuse cases. On a headquarters level, we have the Family Conflict and Sexual Violence Policy Unit promulgating policies relating to children protection, and in different regions, we have dedicated teams handling child abuse investigations. The police force also work with the Social Welfare Department and the judiciary to adopt different measures to protect children in criminal investigations and trials. We have, in particular for trials, anonymity orders that will prevent media from disclosing details that can identify victims. Child abuse is an offense against the person. The police will work with the Department of Justice to prosecute relevant individuals with appropriate offenses based on evidence and circumstances or cases. One can be sentenced to life imprisonment if the case is serious. In terms of sentencing, if it is excessively light or if there is something wrong in principle, we will also ask for a review of the sentence. The police force worked with the Department of Justice to set up a vulnerable victim and child task force to expedite evidence collection and prosecution. The police force also set up a dedicated support team for vulnerable victims. We have 250 officers participating voluntarily. They have received professional training to provide assistance to vulnerable witnesses, including children. About online pornographic content, that is child porn. Child porn, no matter how it is made, including if it is generated by AI, it is still against the law. The police will continue to make use of online patrols and take intelligence-led enforcement operation to combat relevant content. We will also actively reach out to platforms to remove relevant content and take follow-up enforcement action. The police force also work with other international bodies and authorities to combat child porn-related offenses. In 2025, the police force joined the Interpol database that would analyze child porn from different parts of the world to identify the victims and the criminals. And in February and March 2025, the police force worked with Singapore, South Korea, Thailand, Malaysia to take joint enforcement action to combat child porn and online exploitation acts. We have searched 269 locations. We have arrested 544 individuals. We have also rescued some of the children victims. Some members talked about individuals disregarding their own and their children's safety, taking their children to high-risk areas to chase winds and watch waves. We condemn such selfish acts. Not only do they compromise the safety of their own and their children, it has also compromised the safety of rescue personnel. It has also unnecessarily increased the burden on public resources, diverting attention from those who truly need rescue services. The police force will make use of existing legislation to take enforcement action. Last year, when Typhoon Ragasa hit Hong Kong, the police force arrested 4 individuals who have taken their children to chase winds and watch waves. About what Mr. Chen said about regulating for disregard of safety in adverse weather conditions, we will actively look into such suggestion. We have also some members raising concern about our work on publicity and education in order to enhance anti-crime awareness of teenagers and to instill the correct values in them and to help parents and education workers deal with youth issues. In 2022, the police force has the Youth Crime Prevention booklet. We also have videos to tie in with the booklet to enhance teenagers' awareness on the seriousness of specific acts. We also ask bystanders to be empathetic and take action to combat bullying acts and support victims. We have the police force providing a one-stop true child protection web application to disseminate information relating to child abuse and the risks of physical and sexual abuse. There are also discussions on issues relating to bullying and child porn. We have for parents particular information to alleviate pressure so that they can positively support children's growth. In order for parents to have better understanding of cyberspace traps for children, including sexual grooming and cyberbullying, we have in 2003 the Cyber and Technology Crime Squad providing newsletters to parents to talk about real-life examples of high-risk cyberspace traps. We need to work together to protect children. Since 2024, the police force have been working with major school sponsoring bodies to hold seminars to enhance awareness of education sector personnel in preventing child abuse and the requirements of the mandatory report of child abuse ordinance. The police force have provided training to over 10,000 teaching staff, and the police force also hold regular meetings where we will have professionals share how to better protect children and prevent child abuse and analyze relevant risk of child sexual grooming online, and to have professionals intervene early on to provide timely support to children. The police force will continue to work with stakeholders, including secondary school council, parent-teacher associations, youth, and nonprofit organizations to provide comprehensive protection to our children. About what some members suggested about enhancing legal protection, the Security Bureau has already implemented the recommendation of the Law Reform Commission in 2022 about sexual conviction record checks. And the scheme was actually launched in 2011 for employers to see if certain individuals who are to work with children and mentally incapacitated persons to see if they have sexual convictions. Before, this would only cover those who are potential employees or who are renewing their contracts. We have now expanded the arrangements to cover self-employed persons and volunteers to respond to the Law Reform Commission's recommendations. Since the launch of the scheme in 2011 to February 2026, the police force have received 760,000 new applications and 210,000 renewal applications. We have seen 930,000 successful inquiries. And with the extension of the arrangements, we have since received 15,000 applications from self-employed persons and 1,200 applications from volunteers. These figures show the relevant individuals have been making good use of the mechanism. The Law Reform Commission published in 2019 and 2022 the report on review of substantive sexual offenses and relevant sentencing in sexual offenses, and they have recommended a series of offenses to be enacted, including those of sexual grooming and to prevent sexual exploitation of children. In the 2025 policy address, the chief executive made a similar call. The Security Bureau will actively implement the recommendations of the Law Reform Commission. In the second half of this year, we will conduct consultations and we will introduce into the Council this year relevant legislative amendments. We want to complete the exercise within the current government term. We will continue to adopt a multi-pronged approach to combat acts that involve child abuse as well as child porn. We will continue to undertake cyberspace inspections and take enforcement action. We will also actively respond to the recommendations of the Law Reform Commission to take forward the amendments relating to sexual offences.
Secretary for Labour and Welfare. President, once again I thank Mr. Nick Chen for moving the motion. I also thank Mr. Mark Chong, Ms. Maggie Chen, Mr. Tang Fei, Bill Tang, Reverend Peter KOON, and Ms. Grace Chen for their amendments. Altogether, 34 members have spoken on this important topic. I thank them for their invaluable views. The government, like all of us here, attaches great importance to children's welfare. It is a strong belief that all children should be protected. At present, there are different legislations outlawing behaviors which constitute harm and abuse to children. Policy bureaus and departments have adopted a multi-pronged approach to protect children. Just now, we have heard from the Undersecretary for Security. On my part, having consulted the CEDB, the ITIB, the Health Bureau, and the Education Bureau, the following is my brief consolidated reply. First, it is our consensus that early identification and intervention of abuse cases is of paramount importance. The landmark legislation of this term of the legislature as well as this term of the government is the mandatory report of child abuse ordinance. Now, the public consultation started in 2021. After 4 years' time, we have garnered a consensus, and now we have legislated for this ordinance. And in the past half a year's time, we have been providing training to professionals and heighten the public's awareness. We have also formulated a series of support measures, and on the 20th of January, the mandatory reporting of child abuse ordinance has been fully implemented. After the law has taken effect, we have weaved a comprehensive protective net. 25 categories of specified professionals, including social workers, teachers, early child educators, and so on. They are required to report serious abuse. It's in effect a red line drawn for them. If a case has passed the red line, they are mandated to report the abuse. Now, there are many forms of discipline. However, for child abuse, those are behaviors beyond the red line. The 25 categories of professionals are the gatekeeper to alert the government to intervene. On the other hand, members have mentioned the rising number of new cases registered in the system. Now, that's the Children Protection Registry managed by the Social Welfare Department. We publish a report every year. Now, starting from the legislative proposal in 2021, we have seen a mild increase of new cases registered every year. However, the number has stabilized at 1,500 in the past year. Now, because of the discussion in society concerning child abuse, the awareness has been heightened. So even before the law was passed, many stakeholders were already aware of their reporting duties. So what we have to do now is to consolidate this awareness and provide more support. In terms of prevention, the LWB and the Social Welfare Departments have put in a lot of efforts to protect children and adolescents. Now, there are some new measures we are contemplating. Now, a member has quoted a popular saying that parents should be required to obtain license. Now, that may be an exaggeration, but many of us here are parents. We are receiving on-the-job training. We are learning on the go. But indeed, there are some parents who are at a more disadvantaged position. Now, on-the-job training may not be enough for these parents, so we have to put in place additional measures for these parents with particular difficulties. So there are 4 community parents and children centers which will be commissioned on a trial basis. Now, as of yesterday, 3 have been commissioned. These centers will target parents who are less well-versed in parenting skill. These centers focus on families with children under the age of 6. These centers will provide play-based services to promote positive parent and child interaction. And for those cases, and many cases will be referred to the centers via the SWD. And for high-risk families, we will provide more support for them, including home visitation, as well as therapeutic counseling, as well as group and individual counseling. If necessary, we will refer the families to the healthcare sector as well. These are all our efforts to enhance prevention of child abuse. Now, no matter how tightly knit the net is, there will still be child abuse cases. So it is important how we deal with these cases with a set of framework involving different departments to support child abuse victims that involves social welfare, education, law enforcement, and healthcare professionals. So please rest assured that we have also made sure that our emergency placements and respite services are in place. We have ramped up the quota places for these services. Starting from 2025, we have subsidized NGOs to set up 6 service teams under the Child Protection Support Service so as to provide more adequate services. On the other hand, on regulating AI, we attach high importance to the governance and risk mitigation on the use of AI. The Digital Policy Office has formulated the Ethical AI Framework and the Hong Kong Generative AI Technology and Application Guideline to provide guidance on the development and use of AI technologies. The policy bureaus are open to measures to further strengthen the governance on AI, including setting standards and regulatory framework. We will continue to monitor the challenges brought about by AI. Now, we are all concerned about the impact of social media on children. Now, the Health Department is going to update the relevant guidelines on the use of social media platform to reduce the impact on children. The government has established the advisory group on health effects of use of internet and electronic screen products. The advisory group will make recommendations on healthy use of social media platforms and healthy screen time, and also to deal with the impacts brought about by the widespread use of the internet. The Education Bureau is actively cultivating students' information literacy, including providing schools with the Information Literacy for Hong Kong Students Learning Framework to strengthen information literacy-related learning elements in primary and secondary school curricula, fostering students' ability to use information and communication technologies effectively and ethically in their studies and daily lives, enabling them to evaluate information and media content and understand how to protect themselves online. On tackling campus bullying, we have launched a series of measures to identify and handle cases of bullying. There are also support and mediation services available for students in need. The police force will handle these cases stringently if criminal behaviors are involved. And also the Education Bureau has required schools to formulate anti-bullying policies under a whole school approach. Also, there are clear guidelines on handling school bullying incidents. Now, also, Education Bureau supports schools to promote value education and strengthen school personnel's ability to handle school bullying. The Education Bureau has established the Harmonious School One-Stop Hotline and Counseling Services, where registered social workers would provide advice and counseling and referral services for students and parents. There will also be on-site support. Now, the Social Welfare Department has implemented the One School, Two Social Workers for Each School measure for 460 schools to provide more support for students. Now, many members have mentioned the LRC's recommendation on the legislation for failure to protect offense. Now, we understand that this is recommended in the report in September 2021. Actually, the policy goal of the failure to protect offense is aligned with the new mandatory reporting of child abuse ordinance. At this stage, we will focus our resources to ensure that the mandatory reporting of child abuse ordinance is implemented properly. That includes monitoring the operation of the reporting mechanism, and also that there are continuous support in terms of professional support, emergency placements, and training and education. We will also step up our efforts to prevent child abuse at source. Some of the measures I've mentioned already. President, child protection requires cordial cooperation between the government, society, and multiple professions. The government will continue to make sure that the legislations are enforced and implemented fully, and that supportive measures are in place to protect children. On behalf of the government, I thank all members for their invaluable views to protect children. Thank you.
I now call upon Mr. Mark Chong to move an amendment. Mr. Mark Chong. President, I move my amendment. I propose the question to you that the amendment moved by Mr. Mark Chong be passed. I now put the question to you as stated. Will members please proceed to vote? Members please press the present button. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present, that is, those returned by the EC and those returned by FCs and GCs. I declare the amendment passed. Ms. Maggie Chan, as the previous amendment has been passed, you may move your further amendment. President, I move my further amendment. I propose the question to you that the further amendment moved by Ms. Maggie Chan be passed. I now put the question to you as stated. Will members please proceed to vote? Members please press the present button. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present, that is, those returned by EC and those returned by FCs and GCs. I declare the amendment passed. Mr. Tang Fei, as the previous amendments have been passed, you may move your further amendment. President, I move my further amendment. I propose the question to you that the further amendment moved by Mr. Tang Fei be passed. I now put the question to you as stated. Will members please proceed to vote? Members, please press the present button. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present, that is, those returned by EC and those returned by FCs and GCs. I declare the amendment passed. Mr. Bill-Tang, as the previous amendments have been passed, you may move your further amendment. President, I move my further amendment. I propose the question to you that the further amendment moved by Mr. Bill-Tang be passed. I now put the question to you as stated. Will members please proceed to vote? Members, please press the present button. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present, that is, those returned by the EC and those returned by FCs and GCs. I declare the amendment passed. Reverend Peter KOON, as the previous amendments have been passed, you may move your further amendment. President, I move my further amendment. I propose the question to you that the further amendment moved by Reverend Peter KOON be passed. I now put the question to you as stated. Will members please proceed to vote? Members, please press the present button. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present, that is, those returned by the EC and those returned by FCs and GCs. I declare the amendment passed. Ms. Grace Chan, as the previous amendments have been passed, you may move your further amendment. President, I move my further amendment. I propose the question to you that the further amendment moved by Ms. Grace Chan be passed. I now put the question to you as stated. Will members please proceed to vote? Members, please press the present button. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present, that is, those returned by EC and those returned by FCs and GCs. I declare the amendment passed. Mr. Nick Chan, you have 4 minutes 8 seconds to reply. The debate will then come to a close. Mr. Nick Chan. Well, I am happy to learn that there is positive response from the administration. I hope that these suggestions from members can be implemented. It should not be put on the back burners. This is a meaningful debate. But what we said should not just stay within this council. I believe the administration shares the same goal with members. That is, we want to protect each and every child so that they can grow up in a safe and happy environment. One case of child abuse is too many. The administration should holistically review and enhance the legislation on child protection so that the legal provisions can be implemented to enhance our love and care for children. We need to raise maximum penalties to give a stronger deterrence. We need to show care and love for our children as well. That is, we need to teach parents the correct values so as to prevent them from harming the children inadvertently and prevent tragedies from happening. We also need to teach children about self-love so that they love themselves and know how to protect themselves in face of abuse. We need to take a preventive stance. That is the common responsibility of all. It's very difficult to define psychological trauma. It's difficult to gather evidence. It's difficult for children to express the psychological harm that they have suffered, not to mention the fact that many abusers are in fact their relatives. The government should make reference to the legislation in other places so as to give a clear definition of psychological trauma followed by professional regular assessment. Now, the majority of members who have spoken are in support of raising maximum penalties, positive parent education, the responsibilities of social media platforms. There are also divergent views on the definition of psychological trauma and regulating social media platform used by children. Now, I fully agree with Mr. Lee Kuan-yew that we need to work on the institution and place stronger emphasis on the responsibility of social media platform operators. We need to take preventive action to prevent children from being harmed. Prevention is better than cure. Ms. Nixie Lam and Mr. Lau Ka-keung refers to widening the scope of the sex offenders conviction record check, and I fully agree. It is necessary and that we protect every child. It's not a slogan. It's something that we need to take action. It's not just a concept. We are all responsible for creating a loving environment for our children in the course of development. I urge members to support my motion. I now propose the question to you that the motion moved by Mr. Nick Chan as amended by Mr. Mark Chung, Ms. Maggie Chan, Mr. Tang Fei, Mr. Bill Tang, Reverend Peter KOON, Ms. Grace Chan be passed. Will members please proceed to vote? Members please press the present button. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present, that is, those returned by the EC and those returned by FCs and GCs. I declare the motion as amended passed. I now adjourn the Council until 11 a.m. on Wednesday, the 22nd of April 2026.